Let's get into it. So, look, speaking of sleepers, rookies, all that good stuff, we're still in rookie mode here. I know a lot of people are kind of burned out from the class, and I think that was probably from the scouting portion of it and all that stuff and getting through the draft. But now is really the exciting time for rookies, Nate. Rookie drafts are happening. We're in one right now. Um, I think you and I are in two together right now, the Dynasty Rankings Dynasty League and Open to Suggestion.
Yep.
A little bummed out. I was at the 103 in the Dynasty Rewind League. I'm like, here we go, baby. My first Omarion Hampton share. He's coming right to me. I figured it was going to go Genty, Hunter, and then I was going to take Hampton. Did not work out that way. Hey, I got Travis Hunter at the 103. I'm super happy with that. It was really just
a steal. It's a steal, Mike, because this league also, we do have two IDP players in that league. So you're going to get the stats for his defense too. So
that
you probably got the 101, who should have been the 101, maybe with Genty, pretty arguable.
Which is why I was surprised that he was still available to me at 103. So I'm still happy. I just wanted at least one Hampton share. You know, he's one of my guys. But we're talking today about rookies to avoid and who to draft instead. This is important. We don't think it's cool to just say, don't draft this guy. We got to tell you, we'd rather get this guy. And look, it could be because we like a different player better. We like their value better. There's going to be reasons why. We're going to have a nice little discussion about it. But Nate, before we get into it, I wanted to just bring up a quick discussion here. This is the DM I've been getting the most, as I know you have as well. We talked about it before the show. And every year it's this guy or that guy. Last year it was Ricky Pearsall or Xavier Legette. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now it's neither, by the way. But so far, our most common question has been, who should I draft? Shedeur Sanders or Jalen Milroe? Right now, these guys are both backup quarterbacks. So my response has been, if Tyler Shough is on the board, draft him instead, because he's likely to be the starter. If you don't like him, the 2026 quarterback class is looking really good. You can go check out Nate's article. Fantastic article, by the way. But Nate, what are your thoughts on this one? We have to pick one or two. Tyler Shough's not an option in this circumstance. What are your thoughts here? Because it's kind of a tough one.
Yeah. So when I've been asked this question, hey, I get it. I have them ranked very similar. I'm going with Shedeur Sanders at the moment because he has the quickest path to being fantasy relevant. I like Jalen Milroe a lot. I think he's got great upside. And I'm not 100% convinced that Sam Darnold is the future face of the franchise for the Seattle Seahawks.
Interesting.
Not that Jalen Milroe is either. But either way, Sam Darnold is going to be the face of the franchise either way for at least 2 or 3 years. He signed a big contract. They're not going to get rid of him anytime soon. So Jalen Milroe, at best, in season 3, could be, someone that you're really excited to have. But in the first 2 years, unless there's an injury to Darnold, he's not likely to see the field. Shedeur Sanders could see the field this season. Not probably week 1. I think Joe Flacco is going to be starting week 1. But Shedeur Sanders, I think, will start at some point this year. I think he is, probably the most talented quarterback in that quarterback room that gives them the most upside as well, as long as everyone there is on the same page with what they want to do, with the expectations of how to handle themselves. I think Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback in that room. And, I think they got a steal at the end of the day. And if it can turn around in the way that, we're actually going to see Shedeur Sanders' talent on the field, be on the field, and not be a distraction, you're getting a steal with probably like in the early 3rd round with Shedeur Sanders. So I think it's a bit riskier, but also Jalen Milroe is not guaranteed anything. If we don't see Jalen Milroe for 2 years, and Sam Darnold's looking just fine out there in Seattle, he's got really no dynasty value. So I think Shedeur is the guy you take the risk on, you take the gamble on. And, even if you're not a big Shedeur fan, you still take him, and you can probably move him this year when he gets an opportunity if you want to go and look elsewhere.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Just looking on our lads, again, I use our lads during the offseason. The NFL does not have to make their depth charts official until late August, right before the season. As of right now, Shedeur Sanders is 4th on the depth chart. That's behind Joe Flacco, Super Bowl champion Joe Flacco, Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and then Shedeur Sanders. Deshaun Watson has an injury designation. He's listed as 5th on the depth chart. I don't know why they don't have him under the reserve section. And right now for the Seattle Seahawks, Sam Darnold is first, obviously, then Drew Lock, and then Jalen Milroe. So, I do think that there's a better path to Shedeur Sanders playing this year than Jalen Milroe. It's going to take a little bit to get Milroe on the field. And Drew Lock, when he comes in the game, as long as he's not starting a whole season, he's not terrible. A couple games, he's fine. So, that looks to me like it's the answer to go with at this point in time. So check in with me next June. We'll see how it looks then. How's that sound?
Yeah, we'll see.
So Nate, let's get into our topics for this evening. We're talking about who we're avoiding and who to draft instead. Let's start with your first one, and I'll preface this by saying,
how dare you?
Yes, how dare
you?
you?
I know exactly what you're going to say, Mike.
My
I know you so well.
how dare you of the day to you.
I know you so well. All right. Well, the first person that I'm going to say not to draft is Tre Harris, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers, who in Dynasty Rewind ADP is the 203. And I'm going to say, who should you draft instead? Jayden Higgins, wide receiver for the Houston Texans, whose Dynasty Rewind ADP is the 205. Now, there's not a large difference in ADP between these two guys, so it's not like I'm saying, oh, don't draft Tre Harris, wait another round, and you can get this guy. Look, the wide receiver depth in this draft class is not that good. I'm not really excited about any wide receiver in the third round. Yes, I like Alec Ayomanor there at some point, but I'm not banging the table for Alec Ayomanor to be a top 24, top 36 wide receiver anytime soon. I think he's got good upside in the offense with Cam Ward, but I'm really only seeing 5-6 wide receivers in this draft class I'm excited about. Jayden Higgins is one of them. But Tre Harris, a guy that I haven't been a big fan of. Mike, you and I have disagreed on this throughout the offseason. But if I have to go after this in fantasy football, which is a game based on box scores, I want to go number one. I want to take into account what team throws the ball more. Well, the Chargers threw the ball 542 times last year. The Houston Texans, meanwhile, 631 times. So just about 100 more attempts by the Texans than the Chargers. We know Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball. They spent an early pick on a running back. They're going to run the ball. They signed Najee Harris
too.
Yes. So this team is going to run the ball. They're going to continue to run the ball. I don't see that this passing attempts is going to increase anytime soon. It should be a better team, which means the passing attempts might even decrease as they had to play from behind last year. The Texans, meanwhile, they have a lot of things to figure out, but they're missing a lot of snaps between Tank Dell, who's going to be missing the entire season, and they brought in Christian Kirk, but Christian Kirk has missed 14 games over the last 2 seasons, and he is getting older. He's coming off a collarbone injury, which shouldn't affect him this year, but Christian Kirk, a little bit older, not necessarily going to play the same role as Jayden Higgins. I like Jayden Higgins despite the higher competition in the Texans role. Do we know that Tre Harris is really that much better than Quentin Johnston? I don't know. Quentin Johnston kind of looked halfway decent to end the year last year.
I like Tre Harris better, personally.
They're not all that different, I must say. The NFL is higher on Jayden Higgins as well than Tre Harris. Harris was picked 21 picks after Jayden Higgins. Jayden Higgins was very early on in the second round, I believe the 34th pick, I want to say, which is eerily similar to where T. Higgins was picked. Also think Jayden Higgins is a more physical wide receiver. Contested catch rate throughout their college career. Jayden Higgins with the 55.6%, while Tre Harris only 48.4%, which is still pretty decent, I must say. Also, when we're talking about hands, Harris had a higher drop percentage in college as well with 6.4% compared to Jayden Higgins' 3%. I like Jayden Higgins more. I think he's a more rounded, pro-ready kind of wide receiver than Tre Harris, who can stretch the field much better than Jayden Higgins. I will give him that. But I think Tre Harris is a field stretcher, not necessarily the guy that's going to be a high-volume guy. Like I think Jayden Higgins can be across from Nico Collins in an offense where they're going to throw the ball more. So I'm going after Jayden Higgins in the beginning of the second round rather than Tre Harris. I don't hate Tre Harris. I'm fine with picking him up in the middle of the second, but I am a big fan of Jayden Higgins. The NFL is as well. The Texans are as well. Not worried about Jalen Noel being there as well. I think they have complementary skill sets, and he was picked much later than I think many of us thought he would be picked. So Jayden Higgins, my guy, I'm sticking with him. That's the wide receiver I want at the top of the second round.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's kind of almost, I don't want to say it's splitting hairs, really, because we're talking about just a few drafts. I actually drafted Tre Harris today at the 203 in the same league where I got sniped on Omari and Hampton. So kind of going all in there on him. I see the logic. I still do like Tre Harris. And I will say this, though, if Justin Herbert gets hurt, man, you Chargers are in a world of hurt. You got Taylor Heineke, Trey Lance, and DJ Uiagalelei as your other quarterbacks.
Who's the Texans' backup quarterback? Do you have that up? Because I can't imagine the Texans are going to be too much better if CJ Stroud gets hurt. But I think they got someone halfway decent.
Well, they got Davis Mills, Graham Mertz, and Keaton Slovis.
All right, maybe I take that back. Hey, Davis Mills.
Yeah,
had a pretty solid season that one year. So
he's played. I think in a backup spot, he's fine there
Yeah.
personally. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out between these two. They're both going to get a shot to start right away.
Yep.
So, unlike the Shedeur Sanders and Jalen Milroe talk that we just had, these guys day one, they're going to be out there on the field for their respective teams. So we're going to see how that works out. So, Nate, you ready to go? We're going to drop down about 2 rounds for mine.
Yeah, it sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So there was a lot of buzz around Isaac TeSlaa, however you say it. I don't know. Whatever. His current ADP is at the 403. And I'm going to tell you instead that you should draft Seattle Seahawks wide receiver Tory Horton. And Nate, I first heard about Tory Horton from you, from Colorado State. And look, when I watched the TeSlaa film, I liked what I saw. I think he has a unique skill set. And I think that unique skill set translates better to the NFL than your fantasy roster, personally. When you're checking points, checking your scores, I just think Horton's going to have the opportunity to give you just a better advantage at getting more fantasy points. Okay. TeSlaa is athletic and tough, but where he lacks is pure route running ability. A lot of his routes are rounded. He doesn't have the most expansive route tree, and Horton is slightly faster. He ran it was a 4.41 as opposed to TeSlaa's 4.43. Hey, that's something. I got to split hairs here when I'm making my points, right? He also has a better catch percentage, career catch percentage in college, 69.7% to 62%. Now, keep in mind, TeSlaa did play 2 years at junior college. Hard to find those stats. Horton did have 5 years in college. Should have came out after his senior year. I think him coming back and getting hurt his draft stock. He was limited to just 5 games this past season, and he actually had, Nate, more receiving yards in 2023 with 1,114 than TeSlaa did in his 2 years at Arkansas, 883. So we see that he's had the experience. He's had the reps. I feel right now he is a much more well-rounded wide receiver. And in that room that has lost DK Metcalf, there's going to be opportunity for him. Let me bring up the Seattle Seahawks depth chart, which I should have had up already. Yeah, okay. So they got Jaxson. Obviously, he's going to be their number one guy working out of the slot, it looks like, on our lads. They got Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Don't know what we're going to get there with him. He's played some good ball in the past. They got Cooper Kupp, too. So, and look, Cooper Kupp's been banged up. MVS is kind of on that line of, I don't know anymore what to really think about him. So Tory Horton's going to have some really good opportunity to come in, and he's a pure outside wide receiver, which Seattle needs. Cooper Kupp, primarily thought of as a slot guy with his time in Los Angeles. So we're going to see, they sent DK Metcalf over there into quarterback purgatory in Pittsburgh. So yeah, interesting to see. What are your thoughts on this one, Nate?
Yeah, I was excited about TeSlaa as well, especially because the Detroit Lions moved up, I believe, a whole round to go get him. But I do really like Tory Horton, and I think there's good opportunity there because they do need an X wide receiver. Tory Horton can be that. I think he could have been a day 2 pick if he wasn't hurt this year. So I think there's some value there as well. And as much as TeSlaa's a fun guy to watch and talk about his traits, the production's not there. So I definitely lean Horton as well.
And did I mention that Tory Horton's Dynasty Rankings ADP is the 412?
I don't think you did, but that's really good value, I think.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't trade all the way back from the 403 to the 412 just because there is that gap in there where he can get taken. But in the middle to back end of the 4th round, it's kind of easier to buy one of those picks when people are on the clock. So a lot of people are like, I don't want any of these guys. But if you're there, middle of the 4th round, like, look, let me give you this. I want to grab my guy. That's definitely a move that I would want to make. So Nate, your next player that you're avoiding and who you are drafting instead. And I saw this before we started, kind of like where your head's at here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm avoiding Dylan Sampson at the 303. And instead, I'm looking to pick up my running back, the RB2 that I'm looking for, in Jarquez Hunter, who Dynasty Rankings ADP has him at the 408 right now. And I think that's rising as we speak. Dylan Sampson coming in at 5'8", 200 pounds. He's not the biggest guy. He was drafted in the 4th round with the 24th pick to the Browns after they'd already picked up Quinshon Judkins. They still have Jerome Ford there. So Sampson's playing for the RB2 spot, but most likely, I don't think Jerome Ford is, any kind of slouch. So I think Sampson's probably going to be the RB3 this year.
I would
I
agree.
don't want to just put Sampson ahead of Jerome Ford. I think that's a disservice to Ford and what he's done over the past 2 years.
Yep.
So, we're looking at Dylan Sampson. We're like, oh yeah, he had like a bunch of touchdowns in college and he played for Tennessee. Well, he's a little small, 5'8", 200, not too small, but a little small. And probably going to be the RB3 on what I would assume would be a bad offense. The Browns, So not really getting me all that excited. And if you're like, well, the future looks good for him. He's behind Quinshon Judkins. The future's only looking so good for him. I think Judkins is a stud. The Browns obviously do too, with where they picked him up in the second round very early on. So I don't think there's really much of a playing path to fantasy relevance for Dylan Sampson anytime soon. Now, I believe Jerome Ford is a free agent after this year, so maybe he's a handcuff next year. But in the meantime, I would much rather go up after Jarquez Hunter. He went to the Rams. And Jarquez Hunter gives the Rams something that they do not currently have in their backfield with Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. Kyren Williams, Blake Corum, not the most athletically gifted of the running backs in the NFL, but have good vision, know how to, get through the line of scrimmage and pick up the hard yards. Kyren Williams has been really good in the touchdown department. But they don't have a lot of explosiveness and speed in that backfield. Blake Corum, a really good vision as well, but not someone who's going to really run away from defenses. Enter Jarquez Hunter, who you can pick up real late. He adds that different dimension with the speed, 4.44, 40-yard dash compared to Blake Corum, who I don't think tested, and Kyren Williams, who ran a 4.6 something. And to show off that speed, last year, Jarquez Hunter was 8th in the NCAA with runs of 10 or more yards, despite being only 40th in attempts. He is explosive. He's able to break off those big plays, and he's also really good after contact as well. 13th among those running backs with 150 carries last year, averaging over 4 yards per after contact per attempt over the last 2 years. And he totaled 98 missed tackles forced in that time as well. So he's someone that is hard to tackle, hard to take down, and he can also get down the field. So, that's something I think that the Rams are really going to value. And as that RB2 for Kyren Williams, I think he can jump Blake Corum because of his different skill set. So I think he will be a part of that offense this year. And also, he was productive on a really bad Auburn team, to be quite honest. Auburn, the last 4 years, 5 wins, 6 wins, 5 wins, 6 wins. And over that time, Jarquez Hunter was on the SEC all-freshman team with 89 carries for 593 yards, averaging 6.7 yards per carry. Sophomore year, another 668 yards and 7 touchdowns, averaging 6.5 yards per carry. His junior year, he was second team all-SEC with 159 carries, 5.7 yards per carry, and 7 rushing touchdowns. And then was first team all-SEC this year. First team all-SEC on Auburn, who had 5 wins. With 187 carries, averaging 6.4 yards per carry, and had 8 rushing touchdowns. So this is a guy that's been productive. He's got good traits. Brings a different dimension to that backfield that they don't currently have. So if I'm going to take a gamble on somebody, it's going to be Jarquez Hunter. Also, you can get him around later than you can right now with Dylan Sampson. So I'm actually really coming around on Jarquez Hunter, who I liked back in the day, in Devy leagues. Hey, he was the guy up after Tank Bigsby, who, of course, I was a pretty big fan of, so I had my eye on him. But I think the landing spot really does get me excited for Jarquez Hunter. Maybe elsewhere I'm not excited, but because he seems to be really the only guy with the skill set in that backfield, I'm going to take a gamble on him in the 4th round.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, you're saving like a round and a half cheaper, so
I love value.
Yeah, I know you do. And so do I. And also to go back to what you were saying, Jerome Ford is a free agent after this season as well. So, all right, I want to take a minute and talk to you guys about somebody that we have partnered with, and that is Fantrax. So Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. You can create or join a fantasy football commissioner league, invite your friends, and dominate your draft this season. Go deep with the ultimate keeper and dynasty leagues. Create a simple redraft league or even a customizable best ball league with up to 2,000 teams. If you do that, please let me know because I want to see how that works. That's amazing. Fantrax's free NFL Fantasy Football League Manager is the most customizable, easy to use, and feature-rich platform in the industry. If you're coming from another service, Fantrax can easily import any of your current leagues, players, and even customize if needed. Have you ever had a trade go wrong or make a mistake in dropping a player? Fantrax commissioner tools allow you to undo any move with one simple click. Fantrax is among the most trusted names in fantasy sports since 2008. And here's the cool thing about Fantrax. It's not just the NFL. Baseball, basketball, hockey, college basketball, college football, golf. I didn't know there was fantasy golf, soccer, and NASCAR. If there's anything lacking in your current fantasy league manager, Fantrax likely has it. Fantasy sports doesn't sleep, and neither does Fantrax, with seasons running 365 days a year. There's a reason why fantasy players who try Fantrax make it the permanent home for all their fantasy leagues. And look, it's easy to switch. Nate, you and I run both of our C2C leagues through Fantrax, but also don't be like me. Make sure you set your college lineup on Saturday mornings. They have fantasy leagues with salary contracts, team caps, auction drafts, Fab for waiver acquisition. You could trade your Fab too. You know, I love that. And there's an in-app league chat and individual chat, so you don't have to do group chats or anything of that nature. So if you want to try it out, fantrax.com/Dynasty Rewind. Sign up today. Let's talk about a player that I'm avoiding and who to draft instead. This will get me.
Mike, I got one thing to say to you.
What?
How dare you?
Finally got one back from you. New England Patriots running back TreVeyon Henderson. Why draft him at the 106, Nate, when you can draft Pittsburgh running back Kaleb Johnson at the 110? And this is no slight on TreVeyon Henderson at all. I like TreVeyon Henderson. I think he's great. He's a fantastic receiving back, and I think that's where he's going to make his money in the NFL, in the PPR format. But I feel Johnson is a better pure running back. Okay, between the tackles, you can disagree if you want, but you would be wrong. And he's not a slouch as a receiver either. Iowa just doesn't throw to the backs a ton. Who has better competition? Ramondre Stevenson, who's done well in the NFL. Yes, he had some fumbling issues. Or Jalen Warren / Kenny Gainwell. They're also, by the way, I think those guys are both, if you draft either Henderson or Kaleb Johnson, I think Jalen Warren and Ramondre Stevenson are great buy low handcuffs right now. A lot of people are down on Ramondre Stevenson. The guy's not dead. He's still going to get carries.
He also got like a 3-year extension like just last year.
Exactly. And Jalen Warren's going to get some carries there too. It's not all going to go to Kaleb Johnson. And look, Kaleb Johnson goes into a great system for him. #fire Arthur Smith. That's what I think. I mean, this, to me, this is just pure, I feel better about one player over the other. I do think long-term, they're both going to be better assets. I just think right now, Kaleb Johnson is the way to go. Nate, you said, how dare I? Do you have any metrics to back that up for me?
Oh, I don't have any off the top of my head. I didn't write any metrics as a counter argument. I should have
counterpoints.
I should have. But no, I just love TreVeyon Henderson. I think that we have I don't want to say tainted, but a warped perspective of TreVeyon Henderson because he shared a backfield with Quinshon Judkins.
Not his fault.
Last year. Yeah, not his fault at all. He's very explosive. He's very efficient with his touches. But I also remember his freshman year where he was one of the best running backs in the Big Ten as an 18-year-old. And he handled RB1 duties for the Ohio State University. And I know I kind of felt nasty saying that, but I just wanted to make sure that we really understood the significance of that. I think, despite some people saying that, hey, TreVeyon Henderson needs to, not have a ton of touches to be effective, which, I don't necessarily totally disagree with. I think he has the ability to be, one of the top backs in this league. And I know Ramondre Stevenson is there to eat some touches up. But if Drake May is who we think he is, I'm going to trust the Patriots offense more than the Steelers offense. Neither offense has been historically great over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But if Drake May is who we think he is, then TreVeyon Henderson all day for me. Even with the 4 slot value you're getting with Kaleb Johnson.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Drake May. It's everyone else up there I'm worried about.
That's fair. That's fair, Mike.
I will say this: I love the Patriots hiring Mike Vrabel. I thought that was a fantastic hire for them. Another gaffe by the Titans letting him go. Yeah, to be honest with you, like the 1-for-1, let's trade AJ Brown and get Treylon Burks.
That worked out so well.
And you know what? Actually, I was thinking about this today. When you say it's the same thing in fantasy, when you take a productive veteran player and you're like, I'm just going to draft this rookie who's going to be better, that doesn't always work out. So you can make some parallels there. There's a lot of rookies we love. Treylon Burks is a great example. A lot of people really liked him, but it didn't work out in the NFL or fantasy. you can apply the same thing to your fantasy teams too. So don't sell out these veteran players just because a shiny new rookie's coming in. If these guys are productive and you're competing, sometimes it's the way to go to keep the vets. Let's see. So Nate, you have your last player that you're avoiding, your third how dare you of the night, but let's let you make your case.
Yeah, so actually, I know you were upset about Trey Harris, which I didn't put on specifically to spite you, but this guy, I saw TreVeyon Henderson. I went to follow TreVeyon Henderson with this one specifically to spite you. I'm avoiding Tyler Warren, who I just drafted in our Dynasty League today.
Breaking news, Nate hates fantasy points.
I drafted him this morning, actually, in our league. I'm at the 110 in a one quarterback league. I couldn't pass up on the value. Also, all the guys I wanted were gone. There's just Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland left, so I had to make a choice. And I have picked Colston Loveland, just to be clear, because I had Colston Loveland as the tight end one. So someone's like, oh, why did you pick Tyler Warren over Colston Loveland? You know what? I picked Colston Loveland in another league over Tyler Warren. This league, I decided to go with Tyler Warren over Colston Loveland, diversifying my portfolio, Mike.
Yes.
I'm trying. But instead of picking him up at the 108, I would prefer to draft Mason Taylor at the 211. I think that's great value on Mason Taylor. This is less on Tyler Warren and more on the great value that I think Mason Taylor is at the 211. And if you can wait to draft your tight end of the future until the end of the second round, I just think that is a lot better for your team than drafting one in the mid to late first round. Unless it's a tight end premium league, even if it's like a quarter point or a half point, I think it's arguable. But if it's not a tight end premium league, I think players like Mike Buka, Kaleb Johnson, RJ Harvey are going to be better overall for your team than going after a guy like Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland. So in those situations, I'd rather draft one of the running backs, one of the wide receivers, and wait on the tight end because I think we have really good tight end depth in this class. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Mason Taylor. I know you like Mason Taylor as well. I know you're a huge fan of Terrence Ferguson. I like Terrence Ferguson as well. So I think there's 4 really good NFL starter quality tight ends in this NFL draft. And the fact that you can get Mason Taylor and Terrence Ferguson at the end of the second, early third, that value is just too good to pass up. When you have that option, I'd rather go after somebody else in the first round. I'm really excited about Mason Taylor going to the Jets. There's not a lot of receiving options there. They got Garrett Wilson, and that's about it. I think Allen Lazard's still looking for a trade because Aaron Rodgers let them high and dry. I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Can I stop you right there and say your fourth how dare you of the day?
That's many.
Josh Reynolds is there. Got Allen Lazard. Remember Tyler Johnson? He's there. Malachi Corley still there. And you want to talk about a receiving back? Their 1, 2, 3, 4. Their 6th running back on the roster is Ole Miss's very own Zach Evans.
Hey, Breece Hall did catch a lot of passes the past couple of years. But something that we've always talked about with tight ends is trying to go after tight ends who are going to be a top 2 target in the offense. That's where you really get kind of the cheat code tight end. And right now, Mason Taylor looks like he could be a top 2 target in that offense. We know Cole Kmet played pretty well with Justin Fields when he was in Chicago. I think Justin Fields, maybe he's not going to be the best passer in the world, but he can definitely support 2 receivers, one of them being Mason Taylor. And with where they drafted Mason Taylor and how good Mason Taylor is with his prospect profile, I think he can take on that position right away. His biggest competition, if you still have it mic up, his biggest competition is Tyler Conklin still there. I believe that would be the guy he's fighting with for the tight end 1 position.
It's actually Jeremy Ruckert.
So Conklin left.
Yeah. It's Jeremy Ruckert, then Stone Smart, Zach Kuntz still sticking around, and Neil Johnson.
So Mason Taylor's the tight end 1 to start the season, no doubt.
Our lads has him drafted in, and Tyler Conklin is actually with the Chargers now.
It's good. It's a good sleeper right there for a redraft.
Yeah.
Or, throw a 4th round pick for Tyler Conklin or something like that. He's always been consistent. I like that. But Mason Taylor, great blend of athleticism with his 4.74 40-yard dash, good production, 414 yards as a freshman in the SEC for LSU, continued to produce throughout his career at 500 so many yards this past year, came out early, declared. I'm a really big fan of him, and I think he's a great value at the end of the second round. So nothing really against Tyler Warren, but I think when you can draft one of these guys later, it makes sense to maybe not draft Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland in the first round, let them fall a little bit farther before you go after them.
Yeah, I don't hate this here. I mean, if you're losing out on a player like Tyler Warren, but you're getting a premier player at a different position, and then you're getting a starting player in the tight end position later in the second round, I'm completely fine with that.
Yeah, I'm not nearly as big a fan of the running backs and wide receivers available to 211 as I am as the tight ends.
Yeah.
So I'd much rather go running back, wide receiver in the first, tight end at the end of the second.
I agree. All right, let's talk about my last player that I'm avoiding. And that is New York Giants quarterback Jaxson Dart. His current Dynasty Rankings ADP. By the way, all the ADP was accurate as of June 2nd, 2025. He's going at the 202. And instead, I'm going to go ahead to the 307. The rewinders must be low on him. That is how you draft and make our ADP. Patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Get him mocks. 307. New Orleans Saints quarterback Tyler Shough. So look, barring any unforeseen signings like Aaron Rodgers goes to New Orleans somehow, maybe they trade for Kirk Cousins, I don't know. Between now and September, Shough is going to be the starter. And Jaxson Dart's going to have to wait behind Russell Wilson and likely Jameis Winston as well. I doubt that they would go right from Russell to Jaxson. I don't know. I mean, look, Dart is the more athletic of these two quarterbacks. I think that goes without saying. Yeah. But if you look at Kellen Moore's offense and the type of quarterback he likes, Tyler Shough is almost the perfect fit. Let's go back to week 18 last year when Tanner McKee started for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I know what you're saying. It's week 18. Keep in mind, the Eagles played their backups. The Giants did not. They played their starting defense in this game. Okay, Tanner McKee, who's almost the same size. He's 6'6", 231. Tyler Shough, 6'5", 225. We're close. He was 27 of 41. Again, not the best completion percentage. This is backups. 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So he had a really nice game. The offense looked good with Tanner McKee back there. We saw some things that they didn't typically run with Jalen Hurts. Some of those things had to be run. A lot more play action, a lot more bootlegs because the second string offensive line was in. So obviously the protection wasn't as good as the starting offensive line, but it was a good game. And Tanner McKee, he ran it well. I think Tyler Shough can do the same thing. Now, I do think Jaxson Dart has the potential to be the better long-term play. However, I think Shough is the better right now fantasy player. And we think Brian Daboll is on the hot seat as he was last year. The fact of the matter is Jaxson Dart is not the next guy's guy. 2026 class is looking better. So if you want to get an asset that you could play if you need or trade to get a better quarterback asset in the 2026 class, Tyler Shough is a guy who fits that bill perfectly.
I like it. I like it, Mike. I'm excited about the 2026 draft class for the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Great plug for my article. I'm going to be doing a series on the top 5 rankings for each position for the 2026 class. So keep an eye on that. Running backs, wide receivers, tight ends will be coming out. But quarterbacks first, and all 5 of them are all pretty exciting. So,
all right, cool. Yeah, looking for that. So definitely check out Nate's article on that. DynastyRewind.com. It's weird to say that. It's cool to say that. It's been a long time in the making. I would just want to give credit to our new editor and content contributor and website designer, Josiah. He did a fantastic job. I'm trying to find the applause here on the board. He did a great job getting this together. The website took him longer than he wanted. Hey, guys and gals, he did it by himself. It was a ton of work. He's got articles up on there too. We got a new contributor as well, Dustin Royer. You want to find him, follow him on X. He's down in the show notes, so you can give him a follow. He's got an article coming out tomorrow, which is your today. If you're listening to this the day it drops, it's going to be about Devontae Adams. A lot of speculation going around about him. So he did a nice little deep dive. So check that out. Patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Switch over to Fantrax, fantrax.com/Dynasty Rewind. We'll be talking to you about that until the season starts. But until then, everybody, till next time, for Nate, I'm Mike. Thank you for listening.